Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really digging into something fascinating. It's this mix of history, philosophy, ancient spirituality.
Yeah, it's a great blend. We've got sources that tell a really dramatic story, but also connected to some incredibly deep ancient wisdom.
Exactly. And it gives us this unique way to think about knowledge itself. So, our mission today really is to unpack this crucial moment in history using these ancient texts as a guide
We're talking Mogul Prince, a major spiritual search.
and wisdom that's described as being so powerful it could make, what, dry wood grow leaves again. Let's
Or
get into it. Okay, so let's start right at the source, you could say. Our materials talk about the Vedas as being, well, fundamental to Indian thought. Why are they seen as such a core pillar?
well, what's really striking is how the source describes the power of this knowledge. You mentioned the bit about making a dry, dead stump sprout new leaves.
Yeah.
That really speaks volumes, doesn't it? It points to this transformative energy within the Vedas. They're seen as the absolute foundation of Indian philosophy and life.
Covering everything.
Pretty much everything important.
Yeah.
The four Purusharthas, the big goals in life: dharma, artha, kama, moksha, duty, prosperity, pleasure, liberation,
Okay.
and the ashramas, the four stages of life. It all comes back to this core idea of dharma,
Mm-hmm.
like cosmic order and do the right thing.
So Veda means knowledge, but it's clearly not just like facts and figures, is it? What kind of knowledge are we really talking about here?
That's a great question. Yeah, literally Veda is knowledge, the art of knowing, understanding, getting to the truth. But it's not ordinary knowledge.
Right.
It's described as divine knowledge,
Yeah.
something the ancient rishis, the sages, directly realized. And crucially, the Vedas are called Aparushya,
Aparushya, meaning.
meaning not written by any human, not composed like a normal book.
Ah.
Instead, the idea is that the rishis heard this knowledge. That's why another name for them is Shruti.
Shruti, meaning what is heard.
Exactly.
So these insights, this divine knowledge, it wasn't written, it was heard and then passed down. How did that work?
Precisely. The rishis heard these mantras, these potent sounds and verses, and then they taught them to their disciples. It was all through listening, through this oral tradition.
Wow.
And eventually, this huge body of knowledge got organized into the four main Vedas we know. Rig Veda, that's mostly poetry and hymns.
Okay.
Yajurveda, more prose, dealing with rituals and sacrifices. Samaveda, that's the musical one, melodies and chants. And then the Atharva Veda,
And our sources mentioned the Veda tray.
right, the triple Veda. That usually refers to the first three, Rig, Yajur, and Sama, grouped together often because of their form, poetry, prose, song.
Okay, so the sources call the Vedas a book of life. How did this ancient wisdom passed down orally manage to survive through, centuries of upheaval, even fights and slavery, as one source puts it?
Well, if you connect it to the bigger picture, the sources paint. The Vedas endured because the civilization itself, Indian civilization, is fundamentally built on this idea of spiritual unity.
Spiritual unity.
Yeah, and this constant quest for understanding. The core message, especially about the soul's immortality, wasn't just an abstract idea. It was lived, it was preserved, passed down generation after generation, even through really tough times.
So it suggests this kind of deep-seated spiritual inquiry is just woven into the fabric of the culture.
It seems so, like a constant inherent questioning.
That's fascinating,
Yeah.
almost like it's in the air.
Exactly what the sources suggest. Something in the atmosphere, they say, that makes people eventually ask, who am I? What's my purpose?
And if they forget.
Then the saints and sages are there to remind them. It's this continuous spiritual dialogue.
Okay, so we have this profound philosophical backdrop, the Vedas, this ancient wisdom asking these huge questions. Now, let's bring in our historical figure, Darshiko.
Right.
Our sources throw us right into a really dramatic moment, his capture by his brother Aurangzeb's forces. But it wasn't just a quiet arrest, was it? The description of the public reaction is, well, it's pretty intense.
Oh, absolutely. It's actually quite stunning when you read it. Dara Shikoor Shah Jahan's favorite son, the expected heir, he's being paraded through Chandni Chowk in Delhi, humiliated.
Right.
But the people,
All right.
instead of being silent or scared, they apparently just erupted. The sources say they pounced on the soldiers, throwing everything they could find: stones, mud, cow dung, pots filled with urine from the rooftops.
Wow. That's not subtle. That's a very clear message of support for Dara.
Undeniable. A really visceral public rejection of what was happening.
So how did Aurangzeb, the brother, the new emperor, basically take this very public defiance?
He saw it as outright rebellion. Not just against him personally, but against the Mughal Sultanate, against the whole order, even against God, in his view.
So drastic measures were needed.
He concluded the only way to crush this rebellion, this sentiment, was Dara's death, nothing less.
And the sources even say he wanted to witness it.
Yeah, there's this dark detail about him wanting to see Dara suffer in his final moments. It really underscores the brutality of the situation.
Okay, this is where it gets really incredible. Faced with that kind of end, this horrifying prospect, how did Dara Shikoh react? What peace could he possibly find?
His composure, as described in the sources, is truly remarkable. It's not just stoicism, it's something deeper. He actually quotes the Upanishads.
Facing execution, he quotes scripture.
Yes. He says, "One who thinks he kills and one who thinks he is killed both do not understand. No one kills, nor is anyone killed.
Wow.
The soul is not killed when the body dies." He uses that classic analogy like taking off old clothes and putting on new ones. The soul just sheds the old body for a new one.
That transforms death from an end into, well, the source says the ultimate peace for him. Where does that level of acceptance come from?
He directly credits his Sufi teacher, his master, Mian Mir.
Ah, the Sufi connection.
Right. Mian Mir taught him that the moment of death is the time of meeting with the beloved, with God.
So it's a union, not an end.
Exactly. He uses this beautiful metaphor.
Yeah.
His life is like a drop of water. It has two possible fates. It could shine briefly like a pearl, or it could merge back into the ocean, become eternal. And he says he's actually joyful at the chance to become the ocean, to have that final, complete union.
That's quite a perspective. It reframes everything. But his journey, this deep philosophical dive, it didn't just start when he was captured, right? Our sources talk about him actively seeking wisdom earlier, like his visit to the fakir Baba Lal Das.
That's right. His spiritual quest was ongoing. He goes to this fakir, Baba Lal Das, seeking wisdom, much like his famous great-grandfather, Akbar, sought out Sufi saints, like Khwaja Moinuddin Chishti.
Following in the family tradition in a way, what did the fakir tell him?
Something quite profound. He says essentially, look, being born a prince gets you a kingdom, sure, but the real thing to learn, the truly valuable knowledge, is poverty.
Poverty for a prince.
Yeah, meaning detachment, humility. The idea that real insight doesn't come from power or wealth, but from letting go of those things.
Interesting. And Dara asks him a really pointed question, doesn't he? Something about Muslims praying, performing namaz, but also respecting other prophets and holy places. It seems contradictory to some.
It's a fantastic question, and one that cuts to the heart of interfaith understanding, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How do you reconcile specific religious duties with universal respect?
Right.
And the fakir's answer is blunt. It's not a contradiction. He says, He, God, is one. His light illuminates every atom. He is the ocean residing in every drop.
The ocean and the drop again.
Exactly. Whatever name you utter, you call out to him alone. He goes on to say that the outward forms, the different religions, they're kind of lies if you get stuck on the surface differences and don't see the single source behind them all.
So he's saying, look deeper. Beneath the surface, they're all pointing towards the same ultimate reality.
Precisely. Look beyond the labels. And he gives Dara some homework.
Oh.
He tells him, read the Torah, read the Bible, read the Upanishads, read the Quran.
Read everything.
Read everything. And he promises you will feel as if all the oceans are meeting together.
There it is. The confluence of the two seas. Majmu'a Bahrain.
That's the moment. Dara hears that phrase, the confluence of the oceans, and apparently immediately thinks, I have to steal that. Borrow it for the title of the book he was planning.
A book about the unity of Hindu and Islamic thought.
Exactly. He wanted to show how these two great traditions were, in essence, meeting points for the same divine ocean.
This idea that the Quran and the Vedas fundamentally are words of the same one God, just in different languages, that's huge. What did that mean for Dara practically? What did it drive him to do?
It became his conviction. He felt it was absolutely crucial to translate these core texts, make them available across languages, across traditions.
He'd already done work on Sufism, right? Biographies of saints?
Yes, he had. But the fakir specifically points him towards the Upanishads. He tells Dara, translate these into Persian. He believed it would open a new world, not just for Dara himself, but for everyone. A bridge between worlds.
And Dara actually did it. He undertook this massive translation project.
He did. And by his own account, it wasn't easy. He compared it to wrestling a champion, saying he often got thrown down by the complexity and depth of the texts.
I can imagine. But he persisted. What did he end up calling this huge work, his Persian Upanishads?
He titled it Siri Akbar.
Sir Akbar, the Great Secret.
Exactly, the great secret. But the title is clever. It also deliberately includes Akbar, the name of his great-grandfather.
Emperor Akbar, the one known for his own efforts at religious dialogue and understanding.
Precisely. Akbar famously believed that truth is not the sole right of one religion. He even traveled all the way to Kashi, Varanasi, to meet the great poet Saint Swami Tulsidas.
And Dara wanted to make that same journey.
Yes, the sources say Dara also expressed a desire to go to Kashi, connecting himself directly to Akbar's legacy of seeking wisdom across religious lines.
So this whole deep dive, it really shows how these fundamental spiritual questions, who am I, what's the point of all this, they just don't go away. They're timeless.
Absolutely. And seeing someone like Dara Shikoh, a prince literally facing his executioner, find real solace and profound meaning by engaging with these questions.
Yeah.
It's powerful.
It speaks to what the sources say about the Indian mind, doesn't it? That it's drawn less to conquerors and more to those who conquer themselves, drawn to purity, to the soul.
Exactly. That inherent spiritual quest, that focus on the soul's immortality, seems to be what allowed these core messages to survive through everything, through centuries of turmoil. It's resilient.
And yet, even as Dara is having these profound insights, translating the Upanishads, seeking this unity, the real world, the political world, is closing in.
Yeah, that's the tragic irony, isn't it? While he's exploring the confluence of oceans, the sources hint at the storm gathering around him. Conspiracies back at court.
Opposition from more traditional religious figures who probably saw his ideas as dangerous, maybe even heretical.
Definitely, they feared his attempts at synthesis. And then, the really bad news arrives. His father, Shah Jahan, is seriously ill, which inevitably triggers the succession crisis.
The war for the throne between the brothers.
Indeed. So, despite all his spiritual attainment, he can't escape the earthly struggle. He's forced back into the conflict, the civil war, and that fateful journey back towards Agra. His spiritual path runs right into the harsh realities of power politics.
Wow, what an incredible complex story we've explored. We went from the roots of the Vedas all the way through the dramatic life and really the profound inner life of Dara Shikoh.
Yeah, we've seen how ancient philosophy isn't just abstract. It can offer genuine peace, real strength, even when facing the absolute worst.
And how one person's intense quest for spiritual unity could lead them to try and bridge these vast, seemingly separate worlds of thought and scripture.
It really brings forward this powerful idea, doesn't it? That maybe the most revered texts from traditions that look so different on the surface. When you go deep, when you approach them with an open heart like Dara tried to, maybe they reveal a single shared unifying truth underneath it all.
A single truth in different languages. So thinking about all this, what does it mean for you listening right now? Here's something to consider.
If that ultimate truth is one, just manifesting in countless ways, countless forms, countless languages, what does that imply?
Yeah, what does that imply for how we approach knowledge today? How we think about truth, understanding across different cultures, different beliefs, in our own complicated time? How might we find our own confluence of oceans?